Hi there, VMman75 here. In this video, we're just going to talk a little bit more about the panels we have available in Nodit. So in the previous video, we just talked about the node graph and the node editor, but we do have some other windows that we can access. And we can also talk a little bit about the toolbar. So the node editor is where we can edit our nodes, and the node graph is obviously where we can manipulate our nodes. But if we go into Windows, we can also show or hide the output window. The output window is a special window. Currently, it supports two nodes, which are, and if I have a look in here, I can go to output, the chat logger, which is the output from AI nodes, and also the logger node. The logger node is just a way to get the output of longer data streams. Um, so I'll just show you that the logger. So the logger currently has no input, but if I was to pass in something that had a lot more data, um, it's a lot easier to see it in the logger. And so the output window has like a refresh and a clear as well. And you can have more than one logger. So if I duplicate it, I can have more than one logger tab at a time. But essentially the output window is where we can see the output of the chat logger and the logger. We also have the visualizer panel. So the visualizer panel, I might just load this here for a moment, is where we can see our 2D graphics. So note it is primarily 2D. It has no 3D capability currently. Um, and so inside of the visualizer, and all of these can be docked, by the way, I should mention. I can dock these into different locations if I want, or float them. I'll leave this floating for now. So the visualizer is where we can visualize any of our 2D graphics. And it has a playhead. We can turn the grid on and off, and so on and so forth. I'll talk more about this in detail later on, but this is where we can look at our 2D graphics. Speaking of grid, I probably should explain that the actual node graph itself has its own grid, obviously, and you can turn the grid off a few ways. You can hold the hotkey, or you can click the hotkey X, which turns off the grid, and you can see at the same time the toolbar also does the same thing when I hit X. And we'll talk a little bit about snapping later on, but you can also, if you have that button on your nodes, will snap to the grid, which is kind of handy. But we're talking about windows at the moment. So another window which is inside of Noded is the keyframe sequencer. And so the keyframe sequencer is essentially a window where we can keyframe nodes. Um, so that's kind of going to be useful if we're doing any keyframe style animation. But essentially, those are the panels in Noded. You've got some options to dock the node editor to the right, for example, the left, and you prefer that style. But generally, the whole interface is completely customizable, except for the actual main graph. You can't move that currently, but the rest of it is. There's also another panel which is important, is actually the status bar. So the status bar, for example, if I make some nodes, like I'll just make a string node, it will tell me how many nodes are in the scene and how many nodes are selected. So I have one node and one node is selected. Yeah. So there's also one more panel. The last panel is this panel here, where is which is used to use AI to generate graphs for us. So I might say something like create a L system tree, draw it, and note it will use Gemini AI to try to do, it didn't do a good job this time, but the point, what it tries to do is it will try to generate the nodes required to give us an output. I might just try that again. This is still in a bit of a experimental phase, but we'll try that again. Create a L system tree. Okay, so that one did a much better job. So you can see it's created the axioms and the rules and iterations and all the rest of it. And so now I should have enough nodes, hopefully, to be able to visualize a tree. And there you go. So that's the tree that it actually built. It's quite a heavy tree, but it definitely did it. So that's kind of cool. I might move that over to here and just drop down the iterations a little bit so that it's not so heavy. There we go. So that was the AI using some of the nodes to draw um, an L system. So we're going to leave that video as it is for this one, and I'll see you in the next video.